everyone is speaking out about this as the Toronto Maple Leafs entered the most critical point of their season. Tons of questions have arose from fans, media alike. But following the debuts of Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo in their first couple games with the Leafs, fans are fired up with their performance so far. We're going to break that down and discuss the implications it has going forward, as well as a couple other comments from the Leafs players surrounding the rest of their season and the impact that that's going to have not only this season, but beyond that as well. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get to that, folks, we have a huge announcement to make. We are super excited to announce that we are kicking off a March Madness bracket for the channel. We've partnered with the Hot Takes app and other digest channels for this event. It is completely free to sign up. Just download the Hot Takes app, click the March Madness banner at the top, and under groups select the digest media pool. This is really exciting as there is over $35,000 in prizes to be won, and since there's a much smaller pool of people participating, there's a real chance of winning big.
Yeah, so check out the link below in the comments or the description, or scan the QR code on your screen right now to download the app, and make sure to use promo code DIGEST. It is cap sensitive, so be sure to use DIGEST in all caps to get exclusive perks when signing up. The main event round starts on March 16th, and if you have any trouble signing in, there is an email in the description. You can reach out to us and we'll help you get signed in. And thank you again to the Hot Takes app for partnering with us on this event.
Yeah, so check out the link in the pinned comment in the description down below. Once again, it's free. It's going to be a super exciting community building experience. Again, we're going to be going live following the rest of the games for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll be discussing some of the picks in those streams. So make sure to check them out in the pinned comment and the description down below. And make sure to use code DIGEST, all caps. It is cap sensitive. But there's a lot to go over today, specifically regarding around the new additions to the Toronto Maple Leafs team. Now, we've been going live after the games, and we've been seeing some of the comments by fans, of course, and it's been going all over Twitter, Reddit, all these different things surrounding Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo. And I think it's time we have a little bit of a conversation about the overreaction that fans have had, not just Leafs fans, fans in general, with those two, because the Leafs in general have been playing extremely bad hockey. And that's dated back to before Brandon Carlo and Scott Laughton have come into play. But some things I want to go over, Darius. I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. Obviously, Carlo's been paired with Morgan Riley. They've choked a couple games in a row. Luckily, they got the win yesterday against the Utah Hockey Club. But as it pertains to Scott Laughton and, of course, Brandon Carlo, the Leafs currently sit 2 points back of Florida. They have a huge game on Thursday. And fans are saying that Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo have been a pretty big problem so far. And I'm curious to see what your thoughts on that are, as well as you guys down below. I don't think Scott Laughton's been good. I think Brandon Carlo's been okay. He's been fine. He had a pretty rough game yesterday in its totality, but the Leafs are entering a crucial stretch of play here, and if they don't pick things up quick, Brandon Carlo and Scott Laughton aside, because they had issues before those two joined the team, things are going to get really messy in the alignment.
Well, off the top, you called it an overreaction. I have to agree there that the last couple games, the reaction to Scott Laughton and Brandon Carlo and what they've been doing on the ice is a total overreaction. We need to calm down a little bit with the new acquisitions. Keep in mind, the trade deadline was Friday, so they flew in to play Saturday in Colorado. The Leafs were in the middle of a road trip. They haven't played at home yet. They haven't even been back to Toronto yet, and they just got one practice in, and that was in between games, and it wasn't even a real practice, right? They were kind of just skating and making sure everything was good for the game against Utah, which was another pretty ugly game. And we're going to get to Morgan Riley as well. But when you look at Scott Laughton, he hasn't played center. He is a center and he can play center. But, the Flyers had him playing left wing, right? He was playing winger. So he's moving back to the center now. There is an adjustment period. It's a brand new team with a new system. He was playing a bigger role with the Flyers. So let's give him a grace period. I think with any acquisition, give them 5 games to really be able to judge them. And I think we're only 2 games in. And again, they haven't been home. I think they desperately needed to get out of that road trip, get back home, get a practice in, and I think they'll be okay. And there's a big game coming up against Florida on Thursday. And not just that, Saturday they play Ottawa. Ottawa's playing for their playoff lives right now. It's going to be another physical and good game. So I think we need to give them a little bit of a grace period and for them to get acclimated to the team. And same with Brandon Carlo. I can understand some of the things being said about Scott Laughton because, yes, he's coming in to play center. He hasn't played center in a while. It kind of makes sense. I still think it's an overreaction. But Brandon Carlo, I think, has played fine. He's playing with Morgan Riley, who is struggling immensely this year. He is struggling, and he's making the simple plays. He hasn't overcomplicated anything really along the boards. He is overcompensating, and I think it's because he's new to the team, so he's trying to get in front of shots and stuff, and it has been detrimental in the last 2 games so far. So I feel like there's a bit of that. But once they get home and they settle down, I think things will settle down a little bit, and they will get back to their game. And time will tell. We can really judge them after 5 games. If it's the same thing, then yes, maybe they were bad moves, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
Kevin Bieksa came out. I mean, obviously, for a defenseman. He is not comfortable out there yet. He doesn't necessarily know where other players are going to be, and we saw that in yesterday's game. John Tavares, everyone was yelling at Brandon Carlo for on the goal. I believe it was the second goal, but it was actually John Tavares' man. It was the center on Utah. And then Craig Berube called timeout and ripped into John Tavares. And everyone thought it was Brandon Carlo's fault, but especially when you're new to a team, like you're going to focus on playing conservative. And that's what Brandon Carlo has done. You can see this here. Brandon Carlo is the smallest, most unnoticeable 6'5", 225 I've ever seen. Is he playing that? I asked him for a friend. I mean, again, he hasn't had a great start to his Leafs tenure, but I also think his first game was pretty good. Game last night was pretty bad, but like at the same time, he's played 2 games. And I guess that's the general, overreaction of fans in general when they get a new player. But it is very interesting. Former Bruin Brandon Carlo is getting the full Maple Leaf experience. And yeah, I think Brandon Carlo is going to be fine. I think he's actually going to pair well alongside whoever he plays. But Morgan Riley's the bigger problem with that defensive core because he left him out to dry multiple times in the first game, a little bit yesterday, even though I think Riley had a much better game, especially in the offensive end. And as it pertains to Scott Laughton, again, he is not going to be a guy who's going to really shine. Like, you're not going to notice him scoring a bunch of goals. You can see here, Kawhi Bertrand's a third-line net-crashing center who plays the edge, crashes the net, retrieves and steals pucks, throws hits, generally produces pretty well with a pretty rough finishing touch. But, like, you can see here is XGF of 54.9% is the best on the Leafs. His team is shooting just 7.8% when he's out on the ice, and his on-ice percentage, or save percentage, is 871. I think he'll enjoy playing in front of Toronto goalies more, which is something, fans and not just Leafs fans and fans in general, like people aren't going to notice the defensive side of his game that much. And he hasn't been great yet. I think he still has some work to do. But at the same time, I think he's going to be perfectly fine. And we're 2 games into the season. I see fans overreacting so heavily. It's I don't necessarily disagree. I think there is an overreaction to be had, or a reaction to be had surrounding the team in general right now. They're not playing great hockey, but I don't think it's the 2 new guys' fault. You think back to before the deadline, a lot of these issues were present, specifically regarding the blue line since Chris Tanev went down, and Morgan Riley is probably spearheading the blame here for a lot of the defensive woes that they've been having. But I mean, OEL hasn't been great either defensively, and there's been some other guys as well. So I think it's not just Brandon Carlo and Scott Laughton, even though because of the assets, essentially 3 first-round picks, 2 first-round picks, and Fraser Minton, I guess Fraser Minton's a 2nd-round pick, but the value of a first, that's why the conversation is going there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, with them not playing well, because they haven't been playing well the last little while, and obviously last night taking it all the way to a shootout, the reaction that, the losses are coming because of the new guys is absurd to me. Or, saying after 2 games, especially with all the circumstances and the fact that Brandon Carlos, his wife is still back in Boston packing up their house essentially right now while he's playing games, right? Like that's something to consider as well. Them coming into a new system, a new team, they're not acclimated yet. Like to say that these are bad trades, we don't know yet. It's been 2 games, right? And they've played the Colorado Avalanche, who are a very good team and retooled as well on the fly at the deadline. And Utah wasn't a great performance, right? Especially the way they kind of collapsed at the end. Not the Leafs we know this season. The Leafs we know from before, but not the Leafs we know this season. And I don't like that. That's kind of creeping into their game. But I don't know if that has anything to do with the 2 new guys specifically. So let's give them, I think, at least 5 games to see what's up, especially because the next 4 games are all at home. That's going to give us a really good idea of what they have. And I think they're going to bring some good things to the table. You don't get traded and forget how to play hockey all of a sudden. There's external factors at play here, right? So I want to see them settle down at home and what they can bring to the table, because I think both of them are going to add another element, and they're very dynamic for this team. So I'm excited to see what Laughton can do as he settles in, works with the coaches. Where do you need me? What do I need to do in this system? Same with Carlo too. I don't know how that's going to work out with Riley, because again, Riley's been all over the place the last little while. And Carlo is a career plus minus player. So like he's never had a minus season. So we'll see how that plays out. But he's a good defenseman. He's going to figure it out. And I think they're going to settle in as a pairing. At least I hope, because they're going to need them to.
Yeah, look at the standings. Big game tomorrow, or Thursday, sorry, against the Panthers. The Bruins playing the Panthers tonight, so hopefully they can help us like they did, surprisingly, against the Tampa Bay Lightning when they shut them out 4-0. One quick thing before I wrap up. Benoit surrounding the mindset heading into the stretch. We want to finish first in our division, so for me, just as long as we win, I don't care about the rest, which is ultimately going to be the case. And Benoit has earned himself at least another few games on that, playing, essentially. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news. Some injury updates hopefully are going to drop later today into tomorrow surrounding Chris Tanev, because that's one of the biggest storylines. We'll keep you up to date with that. And again, check out the Hot Takes app in the description. See you guys later.